Who hides in the mountains under a false name, only to be found by someone who doesn't even know what she's found? Bella Moore thought Cabin 7 was just another space to clean and its guest just another man hiding from the cold. She never asked questions. Not when every paycheck meant survival for her and her daughter. But when her vacuum broke and panic set in, someone fixed it without a word. Someone who watched her more closely than she realized. He said nothing, left no trace. But he knew exactly how to fix what was broken, not just the machine, but something else she thought no one could see. She didn't know he was a millionaire. He didn't expect to care. Neither of them saw what was coming. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The wind howled through the trees like it had something to say. Snow drifted in spirals past the dark wooden cabins, coating the railings and stone paths in soft, deceptive quiet. Somewhere above the resort, the mountain stretched into a white void, too tall and too ancient to care about the people gathered below it. Cabin 7 sat at the edge of the property, slightly removed from the others, a choice few guests made, usually the ones who wanted silence. Bella Moore had learned not to ask why. Some were grieving, some hiding. Some just needed to forget the world for a little while. This one, the man in 7, hadn't spoken more than a dozen words to her since he arrived 2 weeks ago. He was polite, tidy, left folded towels and barely touched the fireplace. But there was something about him, the way he stared out the window too long or walked into the woods with no phone, no music, no coat heavy enough for the cold. Bella tried not to notice. She had too much else to think about. Her vacuum gave out halfway through the living room. It made a horrible wheezing sound, coughed up a puff of dust, and died with a metallic shudder. Bella froze. Not now. Please, not now. She knelt beside it, flipping switches, checking the cord, even tapping it like that would help. But nothing happened. Her stomach tightened as if the floor had just vanished beneath her. The last time something broke, management docked her pay. If they found out she'd damaged equipment, even old, failing equipment, she could be held responsible. And vacuums weren't cheap. She looked around. Everything else was spotless. She only had the hallway left. Maybe she could borrow another unit. Maybe no one would notice. Maybe? Mama. The small voice came from behind her. Gloria stood in the doorway, bundled in an oversized coat, her cheeks red from the walk across the snow. She held a folded piece of paper in her mittened hands, eyes wide. I finished my music class early, she said softly. Can I sit here with you while you clean? Bella nodded, blinking fast. Of course, baby. Just sit over there, okay? Gloria sat on the carpet and began to hum, soft and off-key at first. Bella was used to that, her daughter sang all the time. But after a moment, the melody shifted. It was clear, bell-like. A note carried into the rafters like something from a cathedral. The man from Cabin 7 walked in just then. Bella stiffened. He said nothing, only glanced between her and the vacuum, then at Gloria. His gaze lingered on the child's face as if the sound had struck some invisible chord inside him. Bella flushed. I'm so sorry. We'll be out of your way in a second. The vacuum it's not working. He didn't blink. Do you need help? No, she said quickly, then softened her voice. I mean, thank you. I'll figure it out. He gave a short nod, but something flickered in his eyes. Not pity, something else. Recognition, maybe. Then he stepped around them, collected a thermos from the counter, and left without another word. When the door clicked shut, Bella sat back on her heels and exhaled. Her fingers trembled slightly. Are we in trouble? Gloria whispered. No, sweetheart. Bella smiled tightly. Just a little problem. I'll fix it. But she didn't know how. That night, after putting Gloria to bed in their tiny rental room over the maintenance wing, Bella sat staring at the resort staff handbook. There was a line in bold red under equipment misuse. Repeated failures to report broken tools will result in immediate termination. She couldn't afford to buy a new vacuum. Couldn't afford to lose this job. And more than that, she couldn't risk Gloria losing the one place she was happy, the little creative school nestled beside the ski lodge where she could sing without being told to be quiet. Bella leaned her forehead against the table and closed her eyes. By morning, she had decided to go in early and try again. Maybe miraculously it would work. But when she unlocked the supply closet and reached for the vacuum, she stopped. It was upright, cleaned. The cord rewound. And when she plugged it in, it purred to life like it was brand new. Bella stared. There was no note, no explanation. But she knew. He'd fixed it. How? Why? He hadn't asked her name. He barely spoke. But somehow in that silence he'd understood. And quietly, anonymously, he'd helped. She didn't see him that morning. Or the next. But something inside her had shifted. Like a window had been cracked open in a room that hadn't been aired in years. Gloria came home from school humming a new tune. I got picked for solo day, she said, eyes glowing. Miss Camille says I have a voice that makes people feel. Bella kissed her forehead. She's right. Later that week, there was a notice on the bulletin board about a small staff showcase, parents and guests invited. Gloria's name was listed under Young Soloist. Bella's heart clenched. She hadn't invited anyone. Had no one to invite. But somehow when Gloria stepped onto the tiny stage in the lodge rec room, cheeks flushed, braids tied in red ribbon, she wasn't alone. At the back of the room, arms folded, stood the man from Cabin 7. And for the first time, Bella wondered if maybe she wasn't either. He stayed in the shadows, far enough not to draw attention, but close enough to hear every note. Gloria's voice filled the room like golden thread, pure, steady, a little nervous at the edges. It wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. When she reached the chorus, a quiet hush fell over the small audience. Even the resort manager stopped whispering. Bella sat frozen in the second row, afraid to blink, afraid to break whatever moment this was. She hadn't heard her daughter sing like that since her father left. Not really left, disappeared into silence when the bills got too real, when promises stopped holding weight. Since then, it had just been the two of them. And this. After the performance, Gloria ran to her, face beaming. Did you see? Did you hear? Bella hugged her so tightly she almost forgot to breathe. I heard, baby. You lit up the whole room. But her eyes strayed. To the corner. To where he'd been standing. The space was empty now. The next morning, Cabin 7's porch light was on early. Bella walked past it with her cart, trying not to look up, but failed. He stood just inside the doorway, sipping coffee from a metal mug. They made eye contact for the first time in days. She nodded politely. He stepped forward. She's talented. Bella paused. Thank you. There was a quiet beat. You fixed the vacuum, didn't you? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Just looked down at his mug. You didn't have to. His voice was low. I know. Why did you? He considered. Because I could. Bella exhaled slowly. The cold air bit her throat. Most people wouldn't bother. He didn't smile. Most people don't know what it's like to rely on something that shouldn't break. She stared at him then, really stared, and for the first time noticed the calluses that still lined the edges of his fingers, the faint grease stain on the sleeve of his otherwise spotless flannel. He didn't look like a guest. Not exactly. More like someone who used to fix things for a living and forgot how not to. She found her voice. I'm Bella. He looked up. Mark. Just Mark. That evening, when she returned to her room, Gloria was humming again, this time a different song, softer, sadder. Did you like the tall man? She asked out of nowhere. Bella blinked. What man? The one by the door. At my singing thing. You noticed him? Gloria nodded. He looked like someone who used to be sad. But maybe not anymore. Bella didn't know how to answer that. 2 days passed without seeing him. Then, on a Thursday morning just after sunrise, she opened the door to Cabin 7 and found it empty. No suitcase. No thermos. No boots by the door. Gone. Her stomach dropped unexpectedly. She shouldn't have cared. He was just a guest. Quiet, kind. A stranger with rough hands and old eyes. But still, she stood in the center of the living room longer than necessary, fingers brushing the arm of the couch where he used to sit. Underneath the coffee table was a folded sheet of paper. At first, she thought it was trash. But when she picked it up, she recognized the shape a child's drawing. Purple mountains, crooked trees, a yellow sun, and 3 figures holding hands. In the corner, in Gloria's careful handwriting. For the fix-it man. Bella pressed a hand to her mouth. He hadn't thrown it away. He kept it, looked at it, and left it behind only because. The door behind her creaked. She turned. Mark stood there, dusted with snow, holding a paper bag of groceries and a pack of tea. "I forgot to leave the key," he said casually, stepping inside. "And I heard someone's out of cinnamon." Bella stared at him, mouth slightly open. He set the bag on the counter, glanced at the drawing in her hand, and smiled just barely. "She's good," he said, "at seeing people." Bella cleared her throat. "You left." "I went to town. Needed parts. The old toaster in here has a short." "You fix toasters now?" "I fix everything," he said, with a look that made her chest twist unexpectedly. She didn't know what to say to that, but she offered him tea anyway. They sat at the small kitchen table, sipping from mismatched mugs. The silence between them wasn't awkward this time, just full, like there were words hovering nearby, waiting for permission. Eventually, she asked, "What did you used to do? Before I became a guy in a cabin with too much time?" Bella gave a small laugh. "Something like that." Mark looked down at his tea. "I built things. Repaired them. Machines. Tools. Appliances. I was good at it. Still are." He nodded once. "Then one of my designs took off. A small motor. Someone offered to buy the patent. I said yes." Bella blinked. "Just like that." He looked up. "Just like that." She watched him closely. "And now?" Mark's eyes drifted to the window. "Now I come to places like this and try to remember why I ever thought being known was better than being useful." The words sat heavy between them. Bella whispered, "Sometimes being unseen is the only way to breathe." Mark looked at her then, not like a guest, not like a man passing through, but like someone who saw her, all of her, and didn't flinch. That night, when Bella tucked Gloria in, the little girl clutched her fox plush close and asked, "Is he coming back tomorrow?" Bella didn't lie. Maybe. And somewhere deep down, she hoped it was true. The snow came heavier that weekend. By Sunday morning, the trails were closed and the main road into town was buried under a thick white hush. Most of the guests huddled in the lodge with board games and cocoa. Cabin 7 remained lit, smoke curling from the chimney in thin spirals. Bella had an early shift. Gloria stayed behind with one of the daycare volunteers, coloring beside the fireplace. Bella needed the hours. The paycheck would barely stretch to next month's rent, and even less if Gloria got sick again and they had to skip work. She found Mark on the back deck of the cabin, wearing gloves and tightening bolts on a bench swing that had been crooked since the start of the season. "Good morning," she said carefully. He didn't look up, just nodded toward the toolkit beside him. "Hand me the 11mm wrench?" Bella hesitated, then stepped forward and picked it out without asking which one it was. He smiled to himself. "Nice. You know tools." "No," she said, handing it over. "But I used to watch my dad fix bikes in the garage." The labels stuck. Mark twisted the bolt in silence, then stepped back to check the swing's balance. "I always liked fixing things," he said. "There's something satisfying about it. Clear problems. Clean solutions." Bella leaned against the railing. "Life doesn't really work like that." "No," he said. "But sometimes people do." She looked at him sharply. "People?" He shrugged. "Some people are like machines. You take the time to understand them, what they need, what part's been worn down, and you can help them work again. Quietly, without asking for anything." Bella's voice dropped. "That's not how most people see me." Mark turned toward her. "Then most people don't deserve to." The words lodged somewhere behind her ribs. After that, he started showing up more often. Sometimes he'd walk past while she swept the main lodge steps and leave a thermos of coffee on the railing without saying a word. Sometimes he'd appear beside her with a shovel when the snow got too thick, never asking if she needed help. He simply helped. Once, she found him sitting in the staff lounge fixing the broken toaster everyone had given up on. "Could have just asked maintenance," she'd said. "Could've," he replied, then plugged it in and handed her a perfectly browned slice of bread. Gloria adored him. She made him paper rockets and named one after him, Fixer 5. Mark pretended to launch it from the cabin porch, complete with countdowns and space noises. "Do you have kids?" Gloria asked one afternoon, when he helped her build a snow creature shaped like a dragon. Mark hesitated. "No, not of my own." Bella caught the way his eyes flicked toward her, then down again. "I think you'd be good at it," Gloria declared, patting the snow dragon's nose. "You listen better than grown-ups." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Later that evening, Bella asked him about it. They were sitting by the fire, alone, Gloria already asleep upstairs. Mark had brought over leftover soup and a loaf of bread from a bakery in town. "You didn't want kids?" she asked gently. "I didn't think I'd be good for them," he said. Bella studied his profile in the firelight. "Because of the fame? Or something else?" Mark sighed. "Because I was always better at machines. Emotions felt messier. I didn't grow up with softness. I wouldn't have known how to give it." "But you do," she said. He looked at her then, full on, the flicker of flame reflected in his eyes. "No one ever told me that before," he said. Bella swallowed. "Maybe you just didn't have the right person to say it." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Gloria cried out in her sleep. Bella was up in an instant, hurrying to the small loft room. Mark stayed seated, staring into the fire. She returned a few minutes later, rubbing her arms. "She's running warm," she said softly. "I think she caught something. That creative school is amazing, but full of germs. Want me to drive you to the clinic?" "No," Bella said. "Not unless the fever spikes." She sank onto the edge of the couch, rubbing her temples. "I can't lose this job." "You won't," he said, quiet and certain. Bella exhaled shakily. "You don't know that." Mark looked at her, something shifting in his face. "Yes, I do." She turned to him. "Why are you really here, Mark?" There it was. He didn't answer at first. Then he stood, walked to the window, and pressed a hand against the frosted glass. "Because the last time my name was in the papers," he said finally, "I realized I'd built a company I didn't recognize anymore. Built a life full of people who smiled at me but didn't know me. I couldn't breathe. So you ran." "I reset," he corrected. Bella stood too closer than she meant to be. "And now," Mark looked down at her. "Now I'm trying to remember what it feels like to be seen. Not for headlines or shares. Just seen." She didn't speak, but she didn't step away either. The next morning, Gloria's fever hadn't broken. Bella sat beside her tiny bed, wiping her daughter's forehead with a damp cloth, counting the seconds between breaths. The little girl whimpered softly in her sleep, voice scratchy from the night's coughing. By mid-afternoon, Bella gave in and called the local clinic. The nurse told her they were full, but she could bring Gloria and wait. Bella didn't have a car. The shuttle wouldn't run until evening. She didn't even have time to panic before someone knocked. It was Mark. He didn't ask questions, just glanced at Gloria, then looked at Bella with quiet urgency. Get her dressed, he said. We're going now. They reached the clinic in under 20 minutes. Mark drove fast but steady, one hand gripping the wheel, the other resting open near Bella's trembling fingers. Gloria was seen quickly, thanks to his name. Bella didn't ask how. After a thorough check and some chest x-rays, the doctor diagnosed viral bronchitis. She's strong, he said, but keep her warm, hydrated. Lots of rest. Bella sat down hard in the chair. Mark didn't speak, just handed her a bottle of water and stayed nearby, not too close, but there, a quiet presence, like always. When they finally returned to the cabin, Gloria curled on the couch and fell asleep instantly, fox plush in her arms. Bella placed a blanket over her and turned toward Mark, eyes tired but grateful. You didn't have to do any of this. I wanted to, he said. No one's ever shown up like this, she admitted. Not for me. Not for her. Mark leaned against the doorway. That's hard to hear, but true. He hesitated. Would it be okay if I kept showing up? Bella blinked. You're not just a guest anymore, she said quietly. And I think Gloria's already decided you're part of her universe. Mark's voice was a whisper. And you? She didn't answer with words. Just stepped closer, close enough that their arms brushed, close enough that the question didn't need to be spoken out loud. The next days unfolded gently. Mark returned every afternoon. Sometimes with groceries. Sometimes with borrowed books from the library in town, children's science encyclopedias, planet charts, stories about constellations. Gloria devoured them. She wants to be an astronaut, Bella said one evening, smiling as Gloria drew Saturn in crayon. Last week it was a dragon trainer. Mark chuckled. She can be both. He cooked dinner more than once. His hands moved confidently in the kitchen, peeling, chopping, tasting. Bella watched him in awe, a man who once built machines that changed the world, now calmly folding laundry and slicing potatoes like it was sacred work. Is this what you do when you're not hiding in cabins? She teased once. He looked at her over the pot. No. This is new. She arched a brow. You're good at it. Only when you're here. One night, after Gloria had gone to sleep with her telescope clutched to her chest, Bella and Mark sat on the back porch, wrapped in shared silence under the stars. I talked to the manager today, he said. Bella tensed. Why? Because they're planning cutbacks. Her stomach dropped. I'm on the list, aren't I? They don't see how valuable you are, Mark said. I do. Bella stood, arms crossed. I don't want charity, Mark. It's not charity, he said calmly. It's recognition. And what if people find out who you really are? That you're not just some quiet guest who fixes toasters. He paused. Then let them. Bella stared at him. Do you even want to go back to that world? She asked. Mark looked out over the mountains. Not if it doesn't include this one. A long silence followed. Bella finally whispered, You scare me. He turned to her, brow furrowed. Why? Because this feels real. And real things break. Mark stepped closer, slow, steady. Then let me be the one to fix it. If it ever does. Bella's eyes welled, but she didn't turn away. They stood in the moonlight, inches apart, everything unspoken alive in the space between them. And then Gloria's voice called softly from inside. Mama? Is Skyman still here? Mark smiled gently. Yes, sweetheart, Bella said, still looking at him. He's here. Spring came slowly to the mountains. Snow still lined the edges of the paths, but the trees began to whisper differently, not the cold hiss of winter, but something softer. The sound of waking roots and patient bloom. Gloria got better. Her cough faded, her energy returned. And with it came more songs, more laughter, more drawings taped to every surface in their small room. She made one of a rocket ship with 3 windows, one for her, one for Mama, and one for Skyman. Mark visited every evening. Sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit by the fire while Gloria read aloud from her science books, stumbling over long words with wide-eyed determination. One night, Bella found him in the tool shed behind Cabin 7, fixing the broken snowblower no one else had touched in years. Why do you keep doing this? She asked from the doorway. Mark looked up, grease on his hands. Because it feels like something that matters. Bella stepped closer. You matter. He stood slowly. To you? She didn't hesitate. Yes. His voice was quiet. Then let me stay. Bella looked at him, not as a guest, not as a mystery, not even as the man who'd once vanished into boardrooms and headlines. Just as the one who showed up again and again without asking anything in return. You already have. The following week, the resort hosted a spring gathering. Just a simple picnic, sandwiches, cocoa, kids running wild through half-melted paths. Gloria wore her favorite boots and carried a bundle of her drawings in a ribbon. The manager gave a small speech. Bella stayed in the back, sipping tea, watching Gloria laugh with two other children. Mark stood beside her, shoulders relaxed. They asked me to speak, he said suddenly. Bella turned. You. He gave a half-smile. Apparently, I donated a new espresso machine and repaired half their inventory, so they think I'm some generous mystery man. And are you? She teased. He met her eyes. I just want to stay close to the only thing that's ever made sense. Then, without ceremony, he stepped forward and took her hand. Not dramatically. Not to prove anything. Just to be there. Tangibly. Steadily. As he always had been. Gloria spotted them and ran over, holding up one of her newest drawings, a cartoon rocket labeled Team More Weldon. Mark blinked. You gave me your name. Nope, Gloria said confidently. You're giving us yours. Bella laughed, then caught herself. But Mark knelt to Gloria's level, looked her square in the eyes, and said, I'd be proud to share anything with you. That night, back at their room, Gloria fell asleep with her sketch pad still open and her hand tangled in Bella's sleeve. The lamp cast a soft halo across the blanket fort they'd never bothered to take down. Bella sat beside Mark on the couch, fingers grazing the edge of his sleeve. I've been thinking, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Dangerous. She rolled her eyes. Serious. Go on. I want to find a way to stay. Not just here at the resort. I mean this. He looked at her gently. So do I. She exhaled. But I'm still scared. Good, Mark said. So am I. It means it matters. He turned to her fully then, voice low. We don't need to call it anything. We just choose it. Every day. That's enough. Bella leaned her head against his shoulder. It's more than enough. In the weeks that followed, their lives settled into a quiet rhythm, still strange, still new, but no longer uncertain. Mark extended his stay, then stopped mentioning end dates at all. He took small repair jobs at nearby lodges under a different name. No one asked questions. He liked it that way. Gloria finished the school season with a solo that made the whole lodge go silent. And one evening in June, as the first stars blinked over the mountain, she climbed into Mark's lap and asked, very seriously, Are you my dad now? Mark looked at Bella. She gave a small nod. I'm not the kind of dad who was there from the start, he said carefully. But I'd like to be the kind who never leaves. Gloria considered this. Okay, she said. But you still have to build me a rocket. He smiled. Deal. That night, Bella watched the two of them sit cross-legged on the floor, sketching booster packs and star maps. And for the first time in years, she let herself believe this life, strange and unexpected, was real. Not because of miracles. Not because of money. But because one man who once lived in headlines chose to be quiet. Because one woman who lived in fear chose to trust again. And because a little girl with a paper rocket had sung loud enough to bring them home.